Hey, what's going on, guys? Kalamazi here. This is going to be my patch 10.15 Demonology Warlock DPS guide. In it, we're covering talents, changes, rotations, mythic plus stuff, single target, AOE, basically everything you need to know to play a Demonology Warlock heading into patch 10.15, which comes out July 11th. Now, like always, if you guys want any week warriors, add-ons, and profiles, links to Twitch and Discord down below, where they're all for free for you guys. To a similar extent, I want to give a huge shout out to my patrons before we get too far in the video. For all supporting Patreon, guys, like always, thank you a million times. I really appreciate it. It allows me to keep doing what I'm doing for you guys. And yeah, I just really appreciate it. If you're looking at supporting on Patreon or following on Twitter or anything, links are all that up here. And yeah, let's get right into it. Okay, so getting into the changes for Demonology heading into patch 10.15, there's a good bit. Now, there were some that were made and then redacted, and for the most part, Demonology still feels the same and plays the same, but there are some changes that I want to cover here before getting too far into the talent. So, developers know we're working to reduce the peaks and valleys of Demonology's throughput by depowering called Dreadstalkers. This will allow us to compensate by increasing the throughput of Demonology's other rotational spells. Lastly, the demonic core economy has been too generous in Dragonflight. We want to return Demonology to a place where Shadow Bolt is frequently cast. Demon Bolt damage feels impactful, and the number of instant cast available is a bit more limited. So they mostly went back on these changes. This probably should still be included here, but they basically removed all of the relevant. Like they added talents to increase Demon Bolt damage and things, then went back and changed that and removed those. So we'll review that here. So rip through the portal. Our third Dreadstalker is now gone. A bit unfortunate. Fell Covenant has been removed, Demonic Meteor has been removed, and Fell Might has been removed. They've added a new talent called Heavy Handed. Increases your primary Fell Guard's crit strike damage by 10%, sorry, chance by 10%. Heavy Handed is located in Fell Might's previous location, which is sitting right here. It's actually better now than Fell and Steel. On top of that, you have Cavitation. Your primary Fell Guard's damaging critical strikes deal 10 and 20% increased damage. It is now located in Umbra Blaze's old location, which is right here. Here is Cavitation. On top of that, you also have Fell and Steel being redesigned. Your primary Fell Guard's Legion Strike damage is increased by 10%. Your primary Fell Guard's Fell Storm damage increased by 5%, which is right here. This is very subpar. We don't really play this anymore. Is what it is. New talent, Imperator, I don't know how to say this, increases the crit strike chance of your wild imps by 5 and 10%. A bit of a, I guess, an attempt to increase our throughput, our sustainability. We're not playing anywhere, but it is located here, right there. It's not played in any build, spoilers ahead. Malefic Impact, Hand of Gul'dan deals 8 and 15% increased damage, and the crit strike chance is increased by 8 and 15%. It is now located right here. This is also not played in any build, but it is here nonetheless. Then we have the Hand of Gul'dan damage being increased by 25%, Implosion being increased by 15% as well, Dreadstalker damage being increased by 15%, which this is because the third dog has been removed, so we have, you know, a bit of a buff to our 2 dogs that are remaining, and Demon Bolt damage being increased by 20%. They've also buffed the Aberrus 2-piece to increase Demon Bolt by 20, was 15. Grimoire is the exact same cooldown reduction-wise. So, Biosword's Bombers, the Shard cost has been removed. It's still not as good as Demonic Strength, but it's getting better. Umbra Blaze, this is a big one, now has a 15 and 30% chance, up from 8 and 15%, and now retains remaining damage when reapplied. They also moved the location. It was over here. It is now here. This is actually a big buff to Umbra Blaze. It's played as a main talent in our single target build, which we'll get to in a minute here. It is a good proc chance, basically 1 in 3, and when it procs on top of previously applied Umbra Blaze is still ticking, it will retain the damage and add it onto the new Umbra Blaze. So also a very large increase there. Umbra Blaze is now good in single target. On top of that, Dread Calling's moved to another location. It is now 2 ranks, was 1. Demonic Calling's moved. Inner Demons has also been moved. So you have Demonic Calling right here at rank 1 out of 1. Inner Demons, rank 1 out of 1, which is great because we only played those at rank 1 out of 1 anyways last patch. And we have Dread Calling now being 2 ranks right here. So for the most part, Demonology's changed a good bit talent-wise. Some buffs to core abilities like Dreadstalkers, Implosion, all that. But it still feels the same. It still plays the same. And getting into talents here, it's structured nearly the same. So when it comes to Demonology talents in patch 10.15, things have changed a bit. This is going to be, from what I've seen in Sims and everything, the best single target build for Demonology heading into the patch. Now, you're still playing a lot of similar elements. You're still playing Vile Fiend, still playing Demonic Strength. Heavy Handed is better than Fell and Steel, so we're shifting to this row. Basically here to connect to this from this, no big deal. Fell Sunder, you're still playing Dread Calling. It's 2 points instead of 1 now, but same effect for the most part. You're applying a point in Bloodbound Imps. So Bloodbound Imps works in both single target and AoE. It's worded awkwardly. The chance of receiving a demonic core from a wild imp is increased by 5%. So that 5% corresponds whenever they expire naturally, which they do, and have a chance to give you a core, or 10%. So the effect is doubled when you implode them. So it works in both settings, and this helps sort of smooth the gap we have between losing our third Dreadstalker and that guaranteed third demonic core stack. It feels pretty similar, honestly, gameplay wise. It's solid. Umbral Blaze. So this is now, like we talked about, they buff the damage, buff the proc rate, and the effect now stacks essentially if one Umbral Blaze procs on top of the other one. So a lot of extra value there. Very strong. Playing Power Siphon. Still playing Inner Demons here. There's now 1 point, as well as Demonic Calling being 1 point here. Things have changed a bit down here. You're still playing Portal, still playing Ner'zhuls and Guldans, your Pit Lord Amp, still playing Tyrant with Ring of Tyranny. You're playing 2 points in Sack Souls. Now, Sack Souls, I know it's scary to everybody, but Fel Covenant is gone. The Sack Souls, essentially, gameplay-wise, is the same as playing in Torn Armaments and Expendables. You just summon pets, and they passively increase your damage. Not a big of a deal. 2 points in Sack Souls is ahead of Antorin and Expendables by about 1,000 DPS from me. If you want to run these two over Sack Souls, go for it. But just the same thing, pretty much in single target, being a passive, just damage increase. And Sack Souls is ahead by about 800 to 1,000 DPS from me. Now, when it comes to the single target Cleave build, so having some Cleave elements mixed in, it's also pretty similar. You are shifting gears a little bit. You're playing Implosion over Shadow's Bite. You're playing Dreadlash over Vile Fiend. You're still playing Stratagem like you're playing in the previous build, because you're playing Sack Souls in that build. You end up playing a point in Antorin, a point in Expendables, and you're pulling 2 points out of Sack Souls here. Now, if you do play these 2 points in Sack Souls, it will give you a little more single target emphasis, but you're losing a lot of Cleave value by not having Antorin and not having Expendable. So if you're looking for a bit more of a Cleave, build, but having single target elements still, you're still playing Portal, still playing Pit Lord, still playing Tyrant, Ring of Tyranny, Grimoire, all of that. Playing 2 points in Imp Gang Boss here as well over an Umbra Blaze, but you're playing Antorin and Expendables over Sack Souls. And this is a substantial gain in AoE comparatively to a very minuscule difference by playing 2 points in Sack Souls here over these two. Keep in mind, you're losing about 800-ish DPS playing these 2 points in single target over Sack Souls, but in AoE or Cleave, you're gaining a lot playing these two in Cleave base settings over playing 2 points in Sack Souls. So this will be from what I've seen at least, your Pit Lord Cleave base build heading into 10.1.5. If you're looking for a more AoE Guillotine base build, like I've been playing in Plus a lot lately, this build's similar as well, except you're shifting a bit here. You're not playing any points in Nether Portal. You're playing a point in Cavitation, still playing Bloodbound Imps, playing Antorin, playing Expendables, playing 2 points in Infernal Command, and playing 1 point in Guillotine. This build is very similar to the build we played on retail for a long time. If you're playing Guillotine and Plus, it feels the same way. It plays basically the exact same way as well. Cavitation is a good increase when it comes to AoE. It's not even horrendous in single target, but you still want to have 1 point in Bloodbound Imps for the single target relevancy and the AoE relevancy. This thing lets you swim in demonic cores when you're imploding, and it feels really strong. Now, there is one final build here. I wouldn't recommend it, but if you want to play Immutable Hatred over playing the Pit Lord and things, this is where I'd likely look. This is going to be a subpar build in single target. You're playing 2 points in Infernal Command, 1 point in Immutable Hatred, still playing a point in Sack Souls, Ring of Tyranny Tyrant, Umbral Blaze, and this point in Portal is about a 5k DPS gain. They were playing it in Sack Souls or playing it in Expendables. It is still, I think, like 3k, but it's still a good bit. So if you want to get away from Portal completely, you can put this point here in Sack Souls or this point in Expendables. You're playing more of an AoE-based build. But TLDR, if you like Immutable Hatred or want to play it, you can. But it is behind the Nether Portal Pit Lord build by a substantial margin heading into the patch. And honestly, if I was playing a single target build or a single target-esque kind of Cleave-based build, I would play Nether Portal, Pit Lord, Ring of Tyranny, and, points in either Antorin, Expendables for Cleave, or Sack Souls for single target. Links to all the builds down below. Now, when it comes to playing Demonology in single target with the Nether Portal build, your opener is honestly about the same as it is currently in 10.1. This is the build playing Bloodbound Imps, Vile Fiend, Sack Souls, but still playing Portal, still playing Tyrant, Ring of Tyranny. Now, keep in mind, off the bat, Grimoire Felguard is a 2-minute cooldown, but our Aberrus tier bonus makes it about 1.5 minutes, with Demon Bolts being cast, gives cooldown reduction. So every single Tyrant will have a Grimoire in it, and every single Tyrant will have a Vile Fiend in it. Now, Vile Fiend is a 1.5 minutes, or sorry, a 45-second cooldown. Tyrant is 1.5 minutes, so you can cast one Vile Fiend between each Tyrant basically on its own if you're fast with it to squeeze in one extra cast, right? But every Tyrant has a Vile Fiend everyone's a Grimoire, and you'll cast Nether Portal basically every other tyrant, being a 3-minute cooldown comparatively to a 1.5-minute cooldown. Now, Demonology's opener is a little complicated. The reason we're soul burning in our opener with Nether Portal is because soul burn is a shard consuming spell off the GCD that will summon a pet from the Nether Portal. Also, on top of that, Demonology is a very reactive spec. At times you'll get procs in your opener, like Demonic Calling. At times you'll get refunds from, Soul Conduit, things like that. You have to know how to react to those in your opener to min-max Nether Portal. Also, at the same time, Bloodlust, Heroism, Power Infusion give you more haste, which means more Hand of Gul'dan cast, more shard consuming spell cast in your opener for larger pit lords, all that. It really depends on the scenario you're in, Power Infusion, Bloodlust, all that. But the opener here we're going to look at is going to be a good general opener for Demonology, single target, playing the Nether Portal build. At the same time, if you want to play the Cleave build, playing Implosion, Dreadlash, the gist of it is you're playing Portal, and the opener will indeed be the same. We're also going to look at an in-combat tyrant here, which is going to be about 1.5 minutes into it. Keep in mind, once again, playing the Portal build, it goes Portal with Tyrant, Tyrant by itself, Portal with Tyrant, Tyrant by itself. So we'll look at the in-combat tyrant here, which is what you follow for the plus setups in combat, and just every tyrant without Portal. Now, you might not play a Vile Fiend in plus, but regardless, setup is basically the same, getting a Grimoire in it, getting a dog set in it, and getting as many imps in it as possible. So let's take a look at it. All right, so your opener is going to be, so you're going to combat here, you're going to win a Power Siphon when you have 2 imps out. Now with Inner Demons, imps spawn and despawn semi-frequently, so make sure you have 2 imps for your Power Siphon, like now. So we're going to cast Power Siphon, then pre-cast 2 Shadow Bolts to 5 shards. So Shadow Bolt, 5 shards, Nether Portal, Soul Burn, Grimoire Felguard, Vile Fiend, Demon Bolt to 3 shards, Dogs to 1, then Hand of Gul'dan, Demon Bolt, Hand of Gul'dan. I'm going to Trinket, Potion, and Tyrant here, and with these 5 shards from Tyrant, go hand. Now, you can cast a Demonic Strength here, and then begin the normal rotation. Now, with Bloodlust and Heroism and Power Infusion, you can typically cast another extra Shadow Bolt or 2, for an extra, Hand of Gul'dan or 2, for more pets in your Pit Lord, or in your Tyrant, in your Pit Lord, for more value, all that. It really depends on Power Infusion, Bloodlust, and your haste levels. Now, the important thing here, outside of that, Demo is very simple. It's a builder, spender spec. You build the 3 shards, cast Hand of Gul'dan. When dogs are off cooldown, being Dreadstalkers, cast them, put them back on cooldown. When Vile Fiend's off cooldown, you can cast 1 Vile Fiend again between each tyrant, cast it there, cast dogs on cooldown. And this is the gist of it. Demonology does the vast majority of its damage during cooldowns. Outside of it, like right now, we're doing literal tank damage. So getting your cooldowns down properly, rotationally, is very, very important. Now, you can Power Siphon on cooldown too for the most part. You don't want to overcap on Demonic Core stacks. Your max is 4, so I can Siphon here, for example, and go to 4, but don't overcap if you can avoid that. And the big thing here, the next thing, you Strength on cooldown as well, is that you want to be watching your Tyrant cooldown, your Grimoire cooldown, and planning and saying, okay, in 18 seconds, I have a Tyrant here. So I want to start setting up for it, so I have resources ready to cast my pets, all the above, going into that. So for example, right now, I'm going to cast 1 more Hand of Gul'dan, build the 5 shards here. In combat setup, we're going to go Grimoire Felguard, Shadow Bolt, Vile Fiend, Shadow Bolt, Call Dreadstalkers, Hand of Gul'dan, Demon Bolt. I'm going to Power Siphon here, but it's fine. Hand of Gul'dan, Demon Bolt, Hand of Gul'dan into a Summon Demonic Tyrant, and there you go. Now, typically, you won't lose your Demonic Core stacks there. I did, because I waited a bit long to show for example's sake, but regardless, you want to have pretty much 3 Demonic Core stacks, minimum 2, but realistically 3 hang into your Tyrant setup to guarantee that Grimoire, that Vile Fiend, that dog set, and at least 9 imps in basically every Tyrant. You can do 6 imps at times, but for the most part, not too hard doing 9. Once again, cast Demonic Strength on cooldown, and that's the gist of it. That is your in-combat Tyrant. That is applicable to Mythic Plus scenarios without another Portal, even with Portal, outside of Portal cooldowns, all the above. Once again, you can cast 1 Vile Fiend between every Tyrant, and that is it. Once again, Demonology does the majority of its damage during cooldowns, during your Portal and during your non-Portal Tyrants. Outside of that, it's pretty much tank damage. So getting your cooldowns down is very important, because if you mess them up, your damage is likely going to be much worse than if you, well, didn't. It's much harder to recover as a Demonology Warlock if you scuff cooldowns compared to an AF lock or a Destra lock. So when it comes to Demonology and AOE, I guess plus settings and things like that, there are 2 builds that are being played right now for the most part. This is going to be the Guillotine Cleave build. Implosion, Dreadlash, Houndmaster Stratagem, playing Guillotine, playing Ring of Tyranny, and this is more of a, I guess, a rounded build, more so based around AoE in a sense, because you're playing Guillotine, all of that. There's another build that's called the Nether Portal Cleave build, talked about a little bit ago. This build, which is right here, has a good bit more single target elements, mainly being Nether Portal, Ner'zhul's, and Gul'dan's being your Pit Lord. This build will bring very strong boss damage, priority damage, while still having Implosion, still having Dreadlash, Demonic Strength, Stratagem, a good bit of Cleave-based elements, but not having Guillotine around. Now, we've seen this played a bit more in tyrannical settings recently with Cleave elements, also having, you know, good trash elements with Implosion and stuff. And we've seen the Guillotine build like this played a bit more in like low to mid-tier keys, some high-tier keys as well, a bit more of a fortified kind of angle to it. Regardless, whatever build you follow, it's pretty much the same thing when it comes to AoE. Now, our AoE is based around Imp Gang Boss, also Demonic Strength and Guillotine, but Imp Gang Boss influences your rotation a decent bit when you're imploding. So Imp Gang Boss, basically whenever you summon imps, they have a chance of being an Imp Gang Boss. An Imp Gang Boss does more damage, all that stuff. And when you implode an Imp Gang Boss, they will spawn another wild imp. The imp they spawn can also potentially be an Imp Gang Boss. Now, if those imps expire naturally, the Imp Gang Bosses, by just casting fire bolts, they will not spawn an imp. You have to implode them to spawn another imp. And this is where the change to the implosion rotation and things basically come forth in Dragonflight with the introduction of Imp Gang Boss. Previously, in Shadowlands and things, you built the 6 imps, 9 imps, somewhere around there, and implode them before they expired. Now, with Imp Gang Boss being a thing, you want to still build imps, 6 imps, 9 imps, etc., with like demon bolts and things, but you want to implode them before your Imp Gang Bosses expire. That is basically like the trigger point to fire your implosion, because you don't want Imp Gang Bosses to expire in AoE, because you're basically wasting free imp summons, right? Now, whether you're playing Guillotine or whatever here, if you're playing Guillotine, just throw it down with your Tyrant, or outside of it if it's on cooldown. Same with Strength with Tyrant. If you're if Tyrant's on cooldown, just Strength, you know, on CD and AoE and all that. But for the most part, the Nether Portal opener will be the same as I just looked at a minute ago in single target. If you're playing a build like this, it's more like an in-combat Tyrant setup, heading from pack to pack, but it's pretty simple. So let's say you're heading into a pack, and plus you got a few demonic cores on you, like this, right? You're heading into a pack, you're at 3 shards. Let's say you're at 3 shards, no big deal. We're gonna head into the pack, so we're gonna end up going to 5, cast a Demon Bolt, no big deal. Cast our Grimoire Felguard, Shadow Bolt to 5 here. We're going to cast Call Dreadstalkers. Typically, I'll just cast 2 bolts back to 5 here. It depends on shard generation and demonic cores. Hand to Gul'dan, Demon Bolt. Hand to Gul'dan, Trinkets, Potions if you have them. Summon Demonic Tyrant. I'll cast Demonic Strength. Hand to Gul'dan. Wait for Strength to end. Cast Grimoire. Cast Guillotine, I'm sorry. And just start casting Hand to Gul'dans and Dogs on cooldown, right? Now, this weak aura here is very important. Keep an eye on this. These blue bars are my Imp Gang bosses. The green ones are non-Imp Gang bosses. Now, I'm going to implode now. Because they're starting to expire. And you can see 7 respawn. This number here is total imps. This is the number of Imp Gang bosses. So you can watch, they're going to expire, implode again, they respawn again. And this is the implosion cycling that Demonology will basically do in AoE that supplements our other AoE, you know, like Guillotine, Demonic Strength, Fellstorm, all of that. This is like your bread and butter when it comes to Demonology AoE. You build imps with Hand to Gul'dan, with Demon Bolt, with Shadow Bolt, and before the Imp Gang bosses expire, you basically go, all right, cool. They're expiring about now, implode. All right, now for the most part, we can Guillotine on cooldown, like I said, cast Dogs on cooldown. You can Power Siphon on cooldown too, depending on your core stacks. If you can, you want to have Houndmaster Stratagem active when you're imploding, because that buffs implosion damage. So casting Dogs triggers that. And besides that, once again, Hand to Gul'dans, Demon Bolts, Hand to Gul'dans. I'm going to implode here, catch these few imps, and once again, 2 respawn. Now, when it comes to the implosion rotation, for the most part, building to 5 shards and then beginning your Hand to Gul'dan Demon Bolt cycling is mostly where you want to be. It'll net you the most amount of raw imps, right? So once again, for here, we're at a few imps, we'll implode, here they come again. And that's the gist of it pretty much. And as far as like in-combat setups concerned, it's the same thing. You'll just cast your Grimoire, you'll cast a few Hand to Gul'dans, or cast your Dogs typically, depending where you're at and stuff. Cast some Hand to Gul'dans, cast your Dogs, cast the final Hand to Gul'dan, and send it. Send a Guillotine. And once again, just keep building imps and imploding in AoE. Now, a thing to note as well, if you're new to Demonology, your Tyrant will freeze all of your imps' energy. It extends their duration until he expires. He's going to expire in 2 seconds here. And watch my imps. They start expiring again. Now. So now I implode again. So that's why their energy is frozen. If you'd like, this weak aura is in my Wago. I'd recommend it for sure, so you can track your imps properly. The blue bars, once again, are Imp Gang bosses. They're right here. The green ones are non-imp gang bosses. This is my total number of imps right here. This is the imp gang boss number of imps right here. And these numbers here are their remaining casts before they expire. So it's very easy to follow. It explains it in the leak lore as well. Someone else made it, not me. They're awesome. But yeah, it's in the Woggle if you like. And that is the gist of Demonology in AOE. Now, when it comes to Demonology, playing the Nether Portal build here, and really it's any build of Demonology at this point, it is very finicky as to what it wants gearing-wise. You obviously want to have your 2-piece, 4-piece from Aberrus. Your 4-piece gives your Grimoire Felguard basically a Tyrant buff, increasing all your demon damage, which is extendable, the Felguard is, by your Tyrant. And the 4-piece doesn't debuff Tyrant damage, and it buffs Pit Lord damage. So very strong there. Your Trinkets, you're going to want an Iridius Fragment basically everywhere for the most part. This is a 3-minute cooldown that you can pair with Nether Portal, giving you a very strong increase to your damage on your Pit Lord, on your Tyrant, all your pets. Very, very strong. And at the same time, you're going to want your Clash Trinket. This is a very, very big boost to Demo's power, and probably the biggest piece of all when you're forming the Infinity Gauntlet of what Demonology wants. This gives you anywhere from 1 to 10 stacks of a 1k intellect buff, roughly, depending on how high this thing is for you, whenever you cast Summon Demonic Tyrant. So this means this is basically an on-use trinket that's paired with your main cooldown. It works for Tyrant, Infernal, and Dark Lair, I respect, but Demonology is the best for this trinket. So when you pop your Tyrant every minute and a half, you have anywhere from 1 to 10 stacks of Domineering Arrogance, which you also pop this trinket with. You also pop your 4-piece with. You also typically get Power Infusion with, your Potion, and maybe Bloodlust, which makes Demonology exceptionally strong during cooldowns. One of the strongest specs we've seen in a long time during cooldowns, but does very, very little damage, probably tank damage outside of cooldowns. It is that low. It is exceptionally spiky, and that's what makes Demonology so volatile when it comes to damage profiles and fight durations. So if a fight dies at 345, like Khazara, for example, and your second portal just ended at 330, your damage is great. If the fight dies at, say, let's say 545, when you're going to portal in 10 seconds, your damage might not be the best. It sort of depends on timings and things. You can sort of play that, but the big thing is that Demonology wants a handful of pieces of gear, Iridius Fragment, your Clash Trinket, your 4-piece, to make it work. Now, another question I get quite often is, when do I want Power Infusion playing Demonology? And when you're playing Portal build, the answer is basically when you have about 10 seconds remaining on Nether Portal, because Nether Portal lasts, you can see right here, for 15 seconds. The big thing is that your Pit Lord spawns from the portal when the portal expires, and Pit Lord lasts 10 seconds. PI is 20 seconds. So if you get PI with 10 remaining on Portal, it'll expire, Pit Lord will spawn, Pit Lord will do all its damage, and then expire once PI expires. Now you're also Tyranting. You're casting Tyrant when Portal has 5 seconds remaining. And at the same time, Tyrant lasts 15 seconds. So getting PI with 10 seconds remaining on your Portal is basically the optimal timing, which is right around after you cast Called Dreadstalkers in your opener. Now very briefly, look at it again here. Just quickly, I'll just make a note when I call for PI. So I'm going to precast Siphon in my opener again. Going to build the 5 shards that are pulling now. So precast Bolt, Right here's my timer on Portal. So I'm going to go Portal, Soulburn, Grimoire, Bilefiend, cast Dogs. I'll cast a Hand here. I call for PI now. Then I go Hand, Bolt, Hand, Bolt. Hand again. I go Trinket, Potion, Tyrant. And I go Hand, Hand. Tyrant gets full PI coverage. Pit Lord spawns now. Full PI coverage, and it helps you ramp a few more imps into your portal as well. I got, I think, 3 hands there. You can get even more with PI and Bloodlust. So that is why Demonology is so incredibly strong with Power Infusion. It's Iridius Fragment, Clash Trinket, Bloodlust, Potion, your 2-piece, 4-piece, your Pit Lord, your Tyrant. All of your damage is in this window. And that is why Demonology is very strong, but also exceptionally volatile when it comes to damage and kill time durations, depending on what fight you're doing. But if the TLDR of this, make sure if you're calling for PI, you get it with about 10 seconds remaining on Nether Portal. Err on the side of caution, get it with 9 left, but don't call for PI the moment the boss is pulled, because you're losing value on your Tyrant and really losing value on your Pit Lord and your ramp heading into Pit Lord. It's also worth mentioning that Demonology, for the most part, wants haste, then mastery, then crit, then versatility. But I will say that on our tier bonus, and even just random pieces of gear in Aberrus, including our Clash Trinket, there's a lot of haste and a good bit of mastery. So for my own character, what sims the highest for me are crit gems, major crit, minor mastery. Now what you're going to want to do is we're going to raidbots.com and run a sim, a top tier sim, with gems and enchants taken into account. for your own character, because my gear will vary from your gear. My gear once crit most in gems, followed by mastery. I have a lot of haste mastery gear, being haste mastery, crit haste mastery, haste here. I've opted to even start making other pieces of gear, like crit mastery next and things, because there's so much haste mastery in this raid. Now, haste does begin to have diminishing returns at 30%, but that does not mean that it's bad for you. Just because you hit that level doesn't mean it might not be your best stat. It depends for everyone. So the best way to tell is to go to raidbots.com and run a top gear sim for your character with gems and enchants taken into account. If you don't want to, haste mastery crit verse, but keep in mind you're likely losing damage not running the sim. So thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully the video helped clarify any questions you might have had about Demonology Warlock heading into 10.1.5. For the most part, Demonology, I think damage-wise, is about the same. Like I said, we might have lost third dog and things, but at the same time, they buffed Implosion, Handy Gul'dan, they buffed baseline Dreadstalker damage for having 2 dogs, not 3 anymore, but honestly, Demo's about the same. You're playing Umbra Blaze and single target and certain things, but it's still Demo. You're still imploding, still casting dogs, still casting tyrants, and whether you like Portal or not, you're still portaling as well. So, yeah. If you guys have any questions, put them down below in the comment section. I'll do my best to get back to you. Once again, any Weak Wars add-ons or profiles is on the video. Links to Twitch and Discord down below are offer free for you guys. Before we end, I want to give a huge shout out again to my patrons. We're all supporting on Patreon, guys. Thank you a million times. Like always, I really appreciate it. If you're looking at supporting on Patreon, should be a link up here, as well as down below in the video description. I think that currently Demonology, I guess currently being the 7th, not, you know, the 11th where 1.5 comes out, is likely the best back and plus for Warlock right now. If not, Destro and Demo are pretty close. And like I said, the profile is not really changing a whole lot. So I guess if you like where Demo's at, awesome. If you don't like where Demo's at, well, you know, we'll see. I think there's a handful of things that could change for 10.2. So we're going to get the ball rolling on that feedback pretty quickly, probably about a week and a half from whenever this video drops. And yeah, I want to hit it hard, but we'll see where it goes. So all that being said, thanks for watching, guys. If you liked the video, hit the like and sub button below. Helps out a ton. And I'll catch you all again soon on stream. Peace.